So Ksenia, I heard you just got back from a weekend getaway. How was your trip?
Oh, that was a bliss. Like, we visited 3 marvelous locations in the Carpathian Mountains. And some of the things I did for the very first time, so I'm eager to share more about it. Yeah, that's just like an ideal getaway for the weekend, an escape to the mountains.
What's a getaway? Both of us use this word.
It's like a escape. It's your short trip for the weekend, let's say. It may not be a weekend. Maybe any day you choose for getting away from your daily routine, let's say, and change the scenery.
And it's some nice connected speech as well, because it's literally get away. Like you're getting away from your normal life, from your job, from your routine, to somewhere else where you can maybe relax.
Mm-hmm.
But it's this getaway that sounds like one word, right?
Exactly. And I was with my ever faithful companion, my daughter Mira. She's like an ideal travel buddy for me. I love sharing experiences with her.
That's so nice. I still enjoy traveling with my mom when I get the chance. So it's good that you're starting that dynamic early.
That was only a 1-day trip, but I felt like I'm such an overpacker. Maybe it's because I'm traveling with a child, exactly. So I want to have everything that I might need during our journey. But I was so surprised. Like, we literally had 2 backpacks for each of us. Like, we had 4 backpacks for a 1-day trip. That, I think, like, it's crazy. I should analyze my packing habits. And I know there are like hundreds of videos on YouTube with all those tips for light packing. Yeah. What about you? Are you an overpacker or you travel light?
It's funny you ask. I feel like I've been through phases. So I feel like I've been an overpacker in the past, to the point where I even would buy those like vacuum sealed bags that you put your big things in, and then you attach a vacuum or a pump and suck it all out so that you have more space in your bag. But over the years, for a while, I'd say I was more of a minimalist, that I was just traveling with a big backpack all over the world. So I really figured out how could I take, just the essentials and fit them all into like my entire life into one backpack. And now maybe I'm somewhere more in the middle, that I'll always have those essentials. In fact, I can even share a picture or something, but I've become much more organized as well. So I have a packing database in Notion. Notion is like a productivity tool that we use also at RealLife English. I have in there organized by the length of the trip and the type of place I'm going. Is it somewhere that's warmer or is it somewhere that's cold? And then it'll filter by, do I need to bring a jacket or do I need to bring a swimsuit?
It's the whole system. Like, there are a couple of lists depending on where you go and which season.
Exactly. I have different views depending on the type of trip.
That's so cool.
That's amazing too, because I feel like there's this curse that you can't travel without forgetting at least one thing. And so this has helped me, that when I travel and it's like, oh, I forgot this. It wasn't on my database. So then I add it so next time I don't forget it. So hopefully I fall into that curse less.
Have you ever traveled like only with one backpack?
Yes. I was doing this for many years. And it's actually my motivation to move to Barcelona. I think I was really tired, like fatigued of having my life just fitting into a backpack, and was ready to put down some roots. So there is a sense of freedom to that, because it's very easy to get up and go and to, be very mobile. But at the same time, then you can miss the stability of having a place where you have your things and you can have all the things that you want, not just the things that fit into a backpack and so on.
And there are so many types of travel, right? Like, sometimes it's your lifestyle to go traveling, what you were saying. Yeah, when you have that sense of freedom and when you always on the go, let's say. But there are types of travels that I think we'll talk about these today, when you just go on vacation, or I don't know. Why, by the way, why do people travel? Have you ever thought about it? Like, what is your why to travel? Why do you travel, Ethan?
Yeah, I think that depends a lot for each person and even each trip, right? I did want to make a point of letting people know that we're using a lot of very advanced vocabulary here already, right? We've brought up many different terms to discuss travel, and we didn't actually define all those. So if you're feeling a bit lost, or like you would really like to add some of these words to your active vocabulary, highly recommend that you listen to this episode over on the RealLife English app. It's free to download in the Apple app or Google Play Store. And you also get vocabulary flashcards so you never forget those new words and expressions, and they're readily available to you next time you get in a conversation and you need them on the tip of your tongue. So check that out, linked in the description or searching in your favorite app store. And as you were hinting at, Ksenia, today we're going to be sharing 5 tips or 5 steps to planning your perfect vacation. And we always like to start with connect it. That's a part of the real life way. And that's tapping into your why and your identity. So as you asked your why for traveling, and I was saying that I think it can change from trip to trip. And even maybe the period in your life when you're younger, you can be more into roughing it, just to be able to see new places, to experience the world, to have crazy experiences that help to shape you as a person, right?
Is it roughing it? How do you spell the word?
Like rough, right? ROUGH.
Okay, roughing it.
And roughing it is an expression meaning that you're, rather than staying in a luxurious place or even a hotel where you have a normal bed, maybe you're camping, for example, you're sleeping on the ground.
That's a nice way to travel, but maybe not for everyone.
So when you're starting out connecting it, I think it's really important to actually ask yourself, why am I taking this trip? Is it because I want to have a cultural experience like this? Is it to sightsee? Maybe you're going to Paris for the first time and it's like, okay, I have to see the things that I've heard about all my life in Paris. Or maybe it's for some R&R.
Oh, what is R&R?
R&R stands for rest and relaxation. So this is very typical that people might want to go somewhere more tropical so they could just sit on a beach and sip cocktails and just really, take it easy. Take it easy getting away from their normal day-to-day hustle and bustle.
Oh, I would love to go there. But this year, I think I'll have my R&R here in Ukraine. I can also relax here, right? Choose some nice place and go and have some cocktails here.
That's my dilemma personally, is that I love both types of trips. I can't do too much of the just rest relaxation. Like I feel like I need to do things and see some things. But my dilemma is always that I go on vacation, and it's supposed to be a vacation that you rest and everything, but usually there's many different things that I want to do, especially if I'm going somewhere new. And in that case, I'm not actually doing the thing of resting. I come back and maybe I'm not any more relaxed than I was when I left. So the other part of Connect It is identity. So that might be my identity as a traveler, is, being torn between seeing many things, having an adventure, being able to have those experiences of a new place, and also needing to rest and needing to, be able to come back fresh, to come back to work. So I think it's important for people to reflect a little bit on what's your identity as a traveler, at least in this trip that you're going to be planning for. Are you someone who's looking more for adventure? Maybe you might be staying more in a hotel or camping or couch surfing, which is amazing for young people. Like I've had periods of my life where I was traveling with a very, very low budget. And, this was a way for me to travel without really having to spend much more than I would at home. But over the years also, and because Jordy is more of a, I'd say like a comfort traveler. So I've also come more to appreciate, staying in a hotel or an Airbnb and being able to enjoy some of those finer things. What kind of traveler would you say you identify as, Ksenia?
Oh, I think for me, it also varies a lot. Like I think I also had those phases you were mentioning at the beginning. But I would say that I always combine rest with some activities. Like I try to visit places, see places, to experience like the local food. So that's why I'm searching for, I don't know, some cafes or restaurants. So I'm into sightseeing, like visiting historical places, reading about them, touching them. But if we like dig deep and even really try to reach into my identity, what I enjoy the most, that speaks to my heart, is solo traveling. Because, I can't say that I travel a lot, but I've seen places, I've been to places. And one of the most vivid memories are from exactly those solo short trips I've made. I remember one of them. So I was living in Odessa, and it was my birthday. And I just took a one-day trip to one of the fortress, like the ruins of the fortress in Odessa region. I just took a bottle of wine with me, some grapes, some cheese,
Ooh.
and I just like totally enjoyed it. I was alone. I was taking pictures. I was like, I don't know, listening to the excursion there, just like, trying to eardrop to some group there. And I really enjoyed it. And somehow it just lodged in my memory, just this one simple day of me solo traveling.
Yeah, I've done a fair bit of that as well. And it can be a magical experience in itself because you're also discovering new places at the same time that you're discovering things about yourself. So many people are really afraid to do something like that. But I think if you really embrace it, you can also see it as a journey of self-discovery. So you're not just going to a place, but you're also taking it as a growth opportunity for yourself.
Exactly. That's what they say, right? We travel to places, not so much to learn about places, but to learn about ourselves.
All right, Ksenia, well, let's move to step 2. So people have gotten a sense of why they're traveling, what kind of traveler they are. And next, you have to get into the nitty-gritty. You have to think a little bit, at least, about your budget, of course, because you don't want to be the person who gets stuck somewhere without a penny to their name.
You said like this phrase, penny to your name, or how was it? What? I don't know this idiom. What does it mean?
If you don't have a penny to your name, a penny is 1 cent in American currency. And so if you don't have a penny to your name, it means you have no money. It means you don't even have 1 cent.
Okay. Thank you.
So the foundation of this, of course, the most expensive thing tends to be the travel to get there. So flights especially. I highly recommend searching on Google Flights because it's a really great search engine for finding the cheapest flight. I don't think there's any algorithm that's trying to, some of these will actually track if you're looking for a flight over several days and stuff and increase the prices and so on. So you're getting a really honest breakdown of what the best price is. And maybe you're going by train or by boat or who knows what. And each of those you can find different websites that might do this for you. But that's going to be, with many trips, a very expensive part. And then, of course, accommodation. So we talked about like identity. That's going to influence a lot what kind of place you're staying in. So, are you going to stay in a hospital, an Airbnb, a hotel? If you're staying in a hotel, how many stars? What kind of amenities do you want? Do you want full board, meaning that all the meals are included? Or do you want just breakfast? Or do you want to just go out on your own and find your own food? All these things are going to influence the price a lot.
Where do you usually search? Because you said that for the flights, you go to Google Flights, yeah? Do the same. What about those hotels? How do you choose them? Is it like word of mouth, or do you go on sites for reviews?
It could be. I find it's pretty rare to find someone who has found the perfect place that they highly recommend that you stay in, but sometimes it happens. Like one trip I was going to share about was in 2022. I went to Sicily. And I had a friend who had just visited there and highly recommended, was raving about this Airbnb that she stayed in, but unfortunately it was booked for the dates that we were going. And so that kind of sucked. But then, I did more research and I found a good place for us. And oftentimes I prefer to stay in Airbnb, but if I'm looking for a hotel or hostel, I probably would look on booking.com because it has so many nice filters. You can filter by what's the maximum price that you want to spend. You can filter by how many stars does the hotel have, by if it has a pool or if it has, anything else that you want.
Yeah, I also use those filters on booking.com.
A really good tip too is to also check the hotel's website, especially if it's a chain, because sometimes they will have better prices when you book directly through their website or exclusive packages. I remember a couple of years ago, we stayed on the Costa Brava, which is north of Barcelona, and I think the price was the same as on Booking, but it included like a visit to the spa, like the hotel spa. So we ended up booking through them. And that was like an experience we could have while we were there.
Sometimes when you go on like Booking.com or similar sites, for your dates, sometimes it shows that everything's booked. But it happened to me. If I called the hotel and asked them to check for me, sometimes they say, yeah, we have the room. So sometimes it's just like they maybe, especially if we're talking not about those big chain hotels, but some private hotels, right? Sometimes they just don't put all the rooms they have on those sites. Don't be shy. Call the hotel, just ask, right? Maybe you'll get lucky and they really have some room.
So finalizing your budget, you shouldn't ignore also costs like, do you need to rent a car when you get there? How much does food cost? What kind of places will you be eating out at? Or will you be staying in Airbnb and cooking your own food? And I'll use nowadays too ChatGPT a lot for traveling. So you could ask it, what are typical costs for restaurants there? What are typical costs for groceries there? So you can see, how does it compare to your home country? And some countries require a visa. You have to take that into consideration because there's costs associated with that. And the last thing I took note of is don't forget to bring some, what I'd call like stupid money. And this is like having a little bit extra it's very common when you travel that unexpected things happen.
Yeah.
You need money for something you weren't expecting, or you have an accident, or something breaks in your hotel or Airbnb that you have to pay for, or whatever the case is. So make sure that your budget's not like so tight that you're not leaving some margin for in case you have some unforeseen issues.
You also should include money for souvenirs to bring back to your friends, right? It's just like a separate line. I know there's the expression when you travel on budget. I mean, I think that's how it sounds. Yeah, to travel on budget. It means to travel with a limited amount of money. Is that so?
Right. You're on a budget. Yeah.
You're on a budget. And how about you? Yeah. Do you, like you say that you make your, inquiry, you do your research. Do you succeed in staying within your budget limits?
I would say yes, that I do, but sometimes, I don't know, you want to splurge on a special meal at this place that you find or something like that, and that could cause you to go a little bit over. But sometimes it's worth it too to do something like that because it can often be those things that create the special memory, right?
I like the word splurge. It doesn't have that negative connotation as the word squander, right? When you squander money, it's something like not the best thing you can do.
You're spending it wastefully.
Spending wastefully, exactly. But when you splurge, right, you kind of treat yourself, right, a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you usually take cash or you use your credit cards?
I haven't used cash very much on recent trips. I tried to just stick to credit cards. First of all, because at least through my bank, I'm getting a better exchange rate than if I were to take cash and try to change it to the local currency. And second of all, because in general, it's more secure, although you can have issues. Like one time I was in Bali and I was taking out money with a debit card, but there's these things that they can put on the ATMs that when you go to get your money out, it'll like make a copy of it. And then, some days later, when I got back to the United States, I saw that there was like a couple max charges on my debit card. And luckily I have a very good bank in the States that they reimbursed it. They didn't make me responsible for any of those costs because it was obviously a scam. But yeah, those kind of things can happen. So you need to be careful.
Yeah.
I just went to Brazil in February, for example. I don't think I saw a real, like the local currency, while I was there.
Oh, really?
Because Brazil has such great infrastructure for credit cards. But for example, when we were in Cusco, right, that was a mistake that we made. So this might be another tip, is knowing, can you use credit cards most places, or do you need to have cash? Because there we made the poor assumption that we'd be able to use our credit cards more than we could.
Exactly. But not only because of that, so just off topic, when I go to any country, I still try to find a currency exchange and have a little bit of local money, even though I also tend to use credit cards more while traveling. Why? Because I have this hobby of collecting foreign currency. Just like as a souvenir, I bring some local money from every country I visit. But I would not rely solely on credit cards, even if you think that the country you're traveling to accepts your credit cards of your country. Why? Because I had this situation where, like, you know, it was in Finland. I was in a small town. And there was a moment when I like literally felt like my heart dropped to my stomach when I got a message on my phone from my bank in Ukraine that my card got blocked. Yeah, that was so unexpected. I didn't see it coming, and I was with no cash on me, like only credit cards. And I now I can consider myself lucky because within half of day, I could get it unblocked, but it wasn't easy. It was just like, it was really hard. I should pay tribute to the whole customer service team I was communicating to back in. They told me that I have to be physically present in one of the departments in Ukraine to get my card unblocked. And I explained all the situation that I'm abroad, I'm without cash at all, and I really need my card to be unblocked. And finally, they arranged a video session with me, like video call session, where I had to answer all their questions. I had to name all my passwords. I had to show like real life while being recorded, my documents, you know, and voila, 30 minutes and it got unblocked. But I spent like 3 or 4 hours to get there. And, you know, the victim of this situation, why it got blocked, is that I ordered an expensive item on one of the online sites there while being in Finland. So one of the recommendation, guys, first, don't rely solely on just one credit card. If you have a couple of them, take a couple of them. Then bring some cash just to save some brain cells. At least you have like, you know, money on you. And then maybe don't buy expensive stuff online, right? Because your bank can block your card for security measures.
Yeah. So that could be another good tip too, is let your credit card company, let your bank know that you are going to be traveling abroad and the dates, because that can also prevent them from blocking once you get there. And that said, let's move on to the next step, which is doing the actual research about the place that you're going to. So you sort of hinted at this, Ksenia, but talking to someone that you know who's been there, if you do know anyone who's been there, because a lot of times you can find like really some hidden gems. So one thing I thought about in preparing for this is a couple of times when I've been to Italy, I've gotten recommendations from locals or from people who have spent a lot of time in the places I was visiting in Rome and Florence, who said like, go to this gelateria. It's like the best one. And like we went there every single day because it's just like the gelato is heavenly in Italy in general. If you find a good place, it's heavenly, but you don't want to fall into a tourist trap that it's maybe a cheap knockoff. You know, it's not like the real deal, nice homemade artisanal gelato, or that goes for whatever the local product is. So that can be a really helpful place to start.
I don't know if I had so many opportunities to ask the locals or maybe people who visited the place before me. But I know, for example, my brother, one of his team members recommended a hotel in Spain for a vacation. And I know right now they're taking their vacation second year in a row in that hotel that was recommended to them, because like they really loved it. Yeah, they really loved it. Yeah. So it happens like that. You should ask like your friends or if you have foreign friends, right?
If you don't have that, a really great resource is like travel vlogs. So on YouTube, searching for the place that you're going to, and you'll find all sorts of seasoned travelers, meaning people who have a lot of experience traveling, that go to these places and they uncover these hidden gems. They uncover the best places to eat, the best places to have this experience. They let you know maybe about mistakes that they made or things that you should avoid or things that you should not miss, like when you go there. So this can be really great just to watch and see what stands out to you personally, that you're like, oh, I really want to do that. Like that really fits with my identity as a traveler, right?
I don't know. I have some doubts about this. Sometimes I want just to see things myself first. I don't want to get spoilers, let's say, in a way. Yeah. So sometimes I did that for Peru when we were traveling to Peru. I think I saw all the places we visited first in videos I watched from Peru, from Cusco. And so when I was there, they seemed quite familiar already. So sometimes I want to avoid this. And what I do sometimes is I watch more about places I visited after I traveled there.
I couldn't do that. No, I'd be like, oh my God, I missed this. I missed that.
I had this.
I get major FOMO when I travel. So FOMO is fear of missing out. You don't want to miss things. So I need to do my research and know what I don't want to miss out on. And like, I was just reminded actually, because I just had dinner with some friends on Saturday. And when I went to Japan, I actually watched this guy who was talking about the best places to eat. And so I went to some of these, and he said the best sushi, hands down, is going to the fish market in the morning. So it's like when they've just brought in the fresh catch, and having sushi breakfast at the fish market, which, at least coming from a Western mindset, sushi for breakfast, raw fish, it doesn't sound so appetizing. But I did it. I was in Tokyo with my mom. I dragged my mom there, and it was the best sushi of my life. And then my friends, they were going to Tokyo, and so I recommended it to them. And then we had dinner the other night, and they said like, oh, that was like the best recommendation of the trip, because, you know, we went there and it was the best sushi of our life. So that even paid forward. So for me, a lot of times it's even for finding these people who are more experienced, who can like tell you the local places to eat. So you're not just going to these super touristy places that you might have a good meal, but it might also just be something that's, you know, nothing to write home about, nothing special.
Yeah, nothing to write home about. Nice phrase. By the way, it's another tip for people who travel on a budget to search for, like, before you go there, search online for some local markets or big stores you can use while there for preparing meals for you, especially if you're staying with Airbnb and it provides like a cooker. Yeah, so you can cook for yourself. It's a very nice idea to check for local markets, right? Superstores, to prepare for it in advance. It will save you a lot of money, right? Sometimes you can indulge yourself in like eating out, but easily you can cook breakfast and it already saves a lot, right?
Yeah, that's where a Airbnb can really come in handy, right? One final story I wanted to share before we move on to the next step was rather recent. Last year, I went to the Canaries with Jordy and with my parents, and did a really nice research for the trip. But one thing that I was pretty sure we'd want to do was, there's one secluded beach that you can only visit by boat. And so I knew we wanted to do a boat tour. And the first morning, there was like this British woman who had one of those little stands, like a sort of like tourist information tour stand. And we talked to her, and she seemed really friendly. And she was like, oh, I have this wonderful experience for you. It's this brand new boat. It's this really great captain. Like, he's wanting to have a really chill vibe. So not that he's taking not that many people on it, but, you know, I can see if he can squeeze you in. And she called him and everything. She's like, you know, yeah, he'll make a few spots for you. And we're like, oh, awesome. It's like, sounds amazing. It's exactly what we want to do. And then we arrive. Actually, we first had to take a, you know, hot bus there with all these other people that were going on the tour. And we arrive. We have to wait like 30 minutes. The captain's late, and he arrives, and it's like this rusty old boat. And we're like, this can't possibly be the trip that we booked. Oh. And then like the captain says his name, and it's like, oh, well, that's the guy. And we're just in this moment of like, okay, do we bail? Do we, you know, leave without doing the tour? And we're like, okay, well, we already, you know, we spent the money. We're here. We're not going to have time if we don't do this now to do another trip. So, you know, we went, and it was an okay experience because it was a day on a boat. We got to go to the beach we wanted to go to. But this was where I was like, God, I really wish I had just done my research and found online like recommendations for a place, instead of just falling for like this woman who was a straight up liar. And there's a lot of these, like, there's a lot of people who that's how they make a living, is by, you know, taking advantage of tourists. It's very unfortunate, but that's why it's really important to do your homework, to research and find out, you know, what things to avoid so you don't fall into a trap like that. So step number 4 is understanding the culture. I feel like so many travelers, they fail to pay attention to this, and they arrive in the place. And the thing that's really important here is that many places have their own customs. They have their way of doing things. And if you don't understand that before going, you can accidentally offend people. You can miss out on experiences. You can even get into trouble depending on where you're going and how serious it is. One example that's very clear for me is the times I've visited Italy has usually been in the summer. So it's hot in Italy in the summer. You tend to go with a tank top, or, you know, women might be with like a strap of some sort. And if you want to go into, I think, any church there, they require you to have your shoulders covered. So if you don't know this before going, and maybe you only packed summer clothes, you don't have anything you can cover, your shoulders with, maybe you're going to miss out on some tour or some visit of a church, especially because oftentimes when we travel, we're on limited time and you don't have time to like go and buy a t-shirt and come back and do it the next day, right?
That's a good point. I know that those touristic places that have, many tourists visit those churches nowadays, they're smart enough. So for such cases, they have the scarves, or how do you call those shawls for tourists. So before entering it, you could use their own, but it won't happen if, for example, if you travel off the beaten path and you find a cozy little church somewhere, which is not a touristic place, so probably it won't have it, right? Learning about the culture of the place is such a essential part of the whole experience of your travel. I always go for local food. I think that's the simplest and that's the easiest what you can do, any traveler can do. Every time you go to a new place, you try to taste it, to taste culture, to try some.
That's one of my top things, is like before I go, I need to know what things must I taste in this place that I'm going to.
Yeah,
so I don't miss out on
yes,
good
exactly. And it's funny that you mentioned churches, because I remember, and exactly, it was one of those partially solo trips for me. So I joined a group of almost strangers. So I just met the guy online, and suddenly he just invited me to join them on the trip they were taking to 𝗥𝗲𝗹𝗪𝗃 region here in Ukraine. And just like somehow I joined them, even though I didn't know anyone there and I only met him online. But they were really a really nice group of people. And I admired the girl who organized the whole thing, because she had such a detailed itinerary for the trip, like what to see. Then while on the train, she would read information about those places we're gonna visit to save money and not pay the guide. So she had those sheets of paper with printed information about each place we were going to visit. But what happened, I really got tired of that detailed plan. I just didn't want to visit every item on this list, because it was like very rushed for me. So I decided I'll spend the morning on my own. Again, I still remember it so vividly. One of the best experiences I had. It was a rainy evening. And one of the first culture shocks for me, because Uzhgorod, the city I visited, it's like a melting pot. So they say that America is a melting pot, and you can say the same about Uzhgorod, because it's like a mixture of 4 different cultures, because it's on the border and with like different countries there. The first culture shock was for me that on a Saturday night on the main street, like the main square, there were like almost no people there. And it was so different from my city, where Saturday night is like streets are buzzing with people. And there was a waiter, he was like cleaning the tables, and I came up to him and I asked, what's going on? It's just like Saturday night. Why there are no people? And so he explained to me that, tomorrow's is Sunday, it's a family day, people are preparing for a mess. So I learned that it's a very religious part of my country and they take it seriously. So Saturday night, you don't see people in the streets. I don't know if that's changed, because it was like 15 years ago. And they had so unique traditions that are different from my traditions. And I enjoyed it so much. I'm not a religious person myself, but it's just like, again, it's just learning part of the culture of those people there.
So Ksenia, one of my pet peeves is the people who travel and they don't bother to learn any of the local language before going. Like even the common courtesies, right? Like, hello, good morning, thank you, and so on. You don't obviously need to become like fluent in the basics of the language or anything, but I think at least having those common courtesies that you can use is something that locals tend to really appreciate. And I think too, it can kind of like keep you out of trouble sometimes, because if you know some survival words that you might need, even just, it reminds me of when we went several years ago to a friend's wedding in Naples, but it wasn't in Naples. It was like in a small town outside of Naples. So there was like no one that spoke English. And we wanted to get a coffee before the wedding. So it was like right outside of the church. There was this cafe, and I just take coffee, like black coffee, so I could just say like espresso. You know, I know that, but I didn't know how to say like what we call here like a cortado or you know, a short coffee, an espresso with like a little bit of milk, which is what Jordy drinks. I was trying to ask like, you know, espresso con, and like trying to say milk, but I didn't know the word for milk. So I was like trying to look for it behind the bar so I could point to it or something. And then I just started being like moo, like trying to mimic a cow. And these Italian guys are just like, what the heck is wrong with this gringo, this foreigner? So it can be good to know some of these basic words in case you're in a situation where someone doesn't speak English or, you know, your native language.
Yeah, Google saved me a lot. Like, I totally agree that you should learn those couple phrases. It's not only valuable, helpful, it also fun. You just like learn another language. You can't speak it, but at least you just like start. Yeah, exactly. Like you start like saying, hey, hi, thank you, goodbye.
It also helps you to not be scammed by, like I talked about earlier, that we fell into this trap in Canaries last year, or when I went to Sicily, we actually had this taxi driver that tried to take advantage of us. We were like, it was really hot. There was no air. We were asking him to put the air conditioning on in a mix of like Italian and Spanish and Catalan and stuff. And he was like saying like, oh, it's an extra charge for the air. And we're like, we're not going to pay for that. And it's like the price was going up a lot. And I could see on my map that he was taking a really long way and stuff like that. So it was clear he was trying to scam us. And so we're like, you know, we're not going to pay. And he like left us on the side of the road. And like, luckily it wasn't a bad neighborhood or anything, but we're kind of in the middle of nowhere. So knowing a little bit of the language can help you in those kind of situations. All right. Well, we've been speaking for a while, Ksenia. Let's jump into the final step, which is actually creating your itinerary. And this can be the most fun step. I think it's a skill that I've developed over the years. I even have people who travel with me will say I have some sort of superpower for trip planning. I don't think I'm like the best, but I think it's something that from experience I've picked up things. So one thing that I found really helpful the last couple trips I've taken is actually ChatGPT. Like you can take a lot of what we've been talking about today and build an itinerary with the help of ChatGPT. So for example, we're planning with my family a trip to the Azores, which are some islands belonging to Portugal and the Atlantic. And I thought I just would like read the prompt that I gave to it to kind of show how I'm integrating some of the different things that we've already talked about. So I'm planning a trip to the Azores with my family. There are 8 of us. Me, my husband, my brother, and sister-in-law are between 30 and 40. I don't have kids, but my brother has 2 sons who are 8 and 5. My parents are 70 and 74. We're looking for a mix of relaxing and getting to know some beautiful parts of an island. Please help me plan the trip. First off, where might be ideal towns for us to stay? And then I continued asking different questions, but you can see I really like set it up with what we talked about with the why, the identity, not just myself, but also the other people that we're traveling with.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. I have to take into consideration Mira's preferences every time I go somewhere with her because, you know, she's a kid, so she wants to have some fun. Long sightseeing tours might be not right up her alley, right? But that definitely helps. And I've never used ChatGPT for planning my trips, but definitely I would first decide what I want to see, then I would choose a hotel or place where I want to stay not so far from those places, so it didn't take me too long to get there, right? And then, yeah, I would be searching for what's there to see, what to do with the kid.
And I would say an important part of this is oftentimes there's a lot of different things we want to do. I know this tends to be the case for me. And something I've had to, and I'd say I still am learning, is that balance between not over planning, over scheduling, which can actually turn the vacation from a vacation into something that feels like stress, feels like work, because you're in one thing and maybe you're just thinking about needing to rush to the next thing that you're supposed to do. So it's always good to have some wiggle room, we call it, to have some space in your schedule for being spontaneous for something that comes up that you're like, oh, that would be really fun. Or you talk to another traveler and they give you a recommendation about this really cool place that they found. So it's nice to be able to improvise a little bit.
Yeah, to have that balance. Exactly. Remember our planning for Peru, like how we planned? Like definitely we then realized that we overplanned the day for 1 and 2 when we had to leave some space for accommodation because it's like a city high in the mountains. So your body has to accommodate, adjust to the climate, acclimate, right? You definitely need to have a plan, just not to waste so much time and opportunities, right? To actually see some worthy things there, some gems. On the other hand, you shouldn't overplan. Exactly
right.
What you were saying, because you just don't want to you want to have that balance with what we were talking about at the very beginning, like to have some rest, on the other hand to see places and to have new experiences, new adventures.
So you need that balance between being able to have these life-changing experiences but also being able to chill out a bit or being able to take advantage of opportunities that could come up.
And sometimes, just let me brief comment here. For those people who maybe don't feel like they are pros in planning, like you say, like they don't have your superpower to plan the itinerary. What do you think about just booking a tour? Just relying totally on the organizational skills of the tour guides, tour agencies?
Yeah, I think it depends on the first questions we asked about your why, about your identity, because I know for me very strongly, like that's not my thing. I don't want someone else to determine the places I'm going. I want to have the freedom to stop somewhere else if I want, or to spend more time if there's a place that I really like. And oftentimes they're taking you to certain places to eat. I want to be able to choose where I eat because I really like to find the places, or even in my itinerary, I would include, okay, like I'm going to this place this day and there's this cafe there that has this really famous local delicacy. So I'm going to make sure I try that. So even finding out before, you don't have to do this for all of them. I don't do this, but like if there's some specific restaurants or specific cafes or chocolate shops or whatever that you want to visit, and, you know, figuring out where those places are and how you can add them in. So I really prefer to take the extra time to personalize it. But there could be other people who they're like, you know, I don't want to spend that time. I prefer just to have someone else do all that for me. And, you know, even if I'm not going to the best place for this, like I'll get to try it and so on.
Exactly. I would take turns. Sometimes I want to plan everything on my own, and sometimes I just want to rely on seasoned travel agencies. Yeah,
I would say too, ChatGPT, like I was saying earlier, can help you to act a little bit as like a travel agent. That actually the next thing that I asked in what I was just sharing about the Azores, for example, was about like, you know, create me an itinerary for a 5-day trip, and like that we're going to be doing this, this, and that. And it actually proposes, you know, the order to do things. And like, also you can tell it, you know, to give you some space for having some downtime, for being at the beach or the pool or things like this, while also being able to visit some things. So it's a really amazing tool for this, for people who maybe don't have the skills to put that all together themselves. It can help to give you a good jump off point. And I can also share an example of an itinerary I've had for a past trip. But I would say, guys, too, if you have any questions for Ksenia or I, like anything that we missed that you're still curious about for your next trip, leave us a comment down below on YouTube, or shoot us an email at hello@reallifeglobal.com. And maybe we can answer you, or maybe we can even create another episode going into more tips. But I don't want to miss out on giving a shout out to the Learner of the Week.
Yeah, we should do that, right? And this week we received a very nice review, or very nice testimonial about our new feature we released on the app. This is a writing exercise. So we got this message from one of our members of Real Life community on YouTube, and they write, "I want to share my words about Real Life app. So the new feature of writing in the app is really remarkable. This feature has solved almost all my problems. So thanks for upgrading the app and your team. Seriously, guys, great work." Thank you so much. And yeah, so you guys, if you haven't tried it yet, you can go and find the flashcards. And there we have this new writing exercise feature that you want to use and see if that's as helpful for you as for this student we just shared testimonial from. Thank you so much.
You can use it even for this very episode that you're watching.
Exactly.
Or listening to. All right, Ksenia. So I'm curious, what are you digging this week?
Oh, like I mentioned already at the very beginning, we were visiting these breathtaking locations in the Carpathian Mountains. I was with my daughter, Mira, and she is a real sucker for trains. So the adventure already started for her on the train. We were taking overnight train from my city to Lviv first. And I don't know if you have that in Spain, but here we have those, how do you call that? Maybe sleeper passenger train, because you have this, so you imagine a carriage, and it has compartments inside a carriage, and it has 4 berths. So beds on a train, they're called berths, and you have 2 lower berths and 2 upper berths. And kids, Ukrainian kids, they always whine and begging their parents to let them sleep on the upper berth. Of course, then the parents would have a sleepless night because we are afraid that they would fall off the berth. Anyway, so we took the overnight train, and already at 5:30 a.m., we boarded this bus. I was telling you guys that I booked some of my trips with travel agency. That was exactly the case. While we were going to our destination, we just were crossing this tapestry of landscapes, of picturesque landscapes. But the crown jewel of our whole trip was the lake 𝗥𝗲𝗹𝗟𝗶𝗪. It is the highest lake here in the mountainous part of Ukraine. It's really big and deep. The water is crystal clear. And I have here, I don't know if you can see the souvenir from there. We decided with Mira to buy it as a souvenir that captures this lake's beauty with the pristine blue water. It reminds me now of that trip. And for Mira, the highlight, like undisputed highlight for her, was the chairlift ride. And that was both of us experienced for the very first time. I really, really wanted to try it. So many of you guys, especially who are skiers, you may know this. So chairlift, it takes you on the top of the mountain, to ski from it. But in summer, it is also working, but it works like this scenic chairlift, right? Like it allows tourists like me enjoy the panoramic vistas without sweating a lot, without hiking on top of the mountain. So I really, really appreciated that they are working in summer this way, and that I could like soak in all these views from the top of the mountains, just like 15 minutes ride, and I have all this panorama in front of me. I really enjoyed it.
That sounds like an amazing, beautiful trip.
So guys, everyone, maybe Ukrainians are also listening to us. So if you are in Ukraine, so you can, I highly recommend visiting those places and using the services of 𝗥𝗲𝗽𝗟 tour agency, the advertisement for them. I will link that in the description. But also when the war is over, foreigners who would like to visit Ukraine, this is like a really place to go and to explore. Like the cuisine is just like amazing there. It's like really my favorite part of Ukraine. I really like 𝗥𝗲𝗹𝗟𝗶𝗪 region and the western part of Ukraine, the Carpathians. Really love it.
So I wanted to make sure that we covered some of the advanced vocabulary that you used in telling that story. So you said that Mira is a sucker for trains. What does that mean?
It means that probably I wouldn't be so far from truth by telling that a ride on a train was like her one of the best parts for her. A sucker for something means that you're really passionate about something. You really love the thing.
And you said that you arrived already in the views were like a tapestry of something. I forget exactly what you
Yeah,
used.
the tapestry of landscapes, picturesque landscapes. A tapestry is something like handmade, is a kind of craft. It's like a piece of art made of cotton thread.
Right?
Yeah, made of thread. Yeah. Usually it's very colorful, multicolored, actually. And when you have those rich in color landscapes, you can call them like a tapestry because the scenery is changing while you're on the road, right? So you can call it tapestry.
And you said that it was a feast for the eyes. I think you were talking about that lake.
Yeah, the feast is that, for example, imagine a big wedding and you have a feast for your guests, right? It's just something, a lot of delicious food, a lot of delicious meals, right? And the feast for the eyes, it's the same, but it's just like you take pleasure in contemplating things, in watching the scenery.
And then finally, I took note of the crown jewel. I think that actually was referring to like that the lake was the crown jewel of the trip.
I really like this metaphor. I don't know where I first saw it, maybe in some of the vlogs about travels exactly, maybe from there, but I remembered it and I wanted to use it exactly for the lake because it's just like a pendant. Yeah, this is pendant called. It's just like a crown jewel. It's like the jewel on the crown, usually at the front. And this is something, the most important part of something. Yeah, the most important, the most exciting, and the most noticeable part of something.
Valuable.
Valuable, exactly.
Amazing. Well, you've definitely tickled my curiosity. I would love to visit that part of Europe someday. And dear listeners, thanks so much for spending some time with us today. Hopefully you've gotten some practical advice that will help you on your next trip. And even if you don't have any travel planned, hopefully you have gotten some vocabulary that will be useful for you. Maybe you can even jump on the RealLife English app onto the Global Speak and press a button and have a conversation with someone about a trip that you've taken or that you would really like to take and hear about other people's travels. And that said, if you are enjoying these lessons, a free way that you can support us is by, first of all, hitting that subscribe button and the bell down below. If you're on YouTube, and the like button, all of these things help YouTube to see that you're enjoying these lessons so that even more people can discover us. It really does help. If you are listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other podcast platform, then give us a 5-star review because, again, this helps people from all around the world to discover our podcast and have a lot of fun learning with us. And finally, don't forget to check out the RealLife English app, which you can download for free right now in your favorite app store and take your learning with this podcast to the next level. And remember that no matter what divides us, that which unites us is far greater. And I can't say anything is more true than with travel, right?
Exactly.
1, 2, 3. Yeah. So Izzy, a lot of learners tell me that they feel frustrated when they actually get the opportunity to speak because they freeze up. So like the ideas in their head aren't flowing out in a natural way like they would in their native language. Does this still happen to you when you speak English?
No, I never freeze up. But I would add that if I'm giving a presentation or if I'm on this podcast, maybe sometimes I need a moment to think, but I'm not freezing up. I'm just thinking like I would do in my native language. But I think freezing up is more related to translation, right? Like you're translating in your head. So I never freeze up, I would say, these days.